A police department in Manchester, New Hampshire is brazenly bragging about how cops get qualified immunity in order to entice new recruits to their police force. Now, this is a now deleted Facebook post for obvious reasons, but I wanted to show you what the Facebook posts look like. And if you pay close attention to what's written there, the argument for why people should apply to become cops in this police department is that the department offers many opportunities to advance and additional unique benefits, including qualified immunity.
Wow.
Now, what is qualified immunity? We've talked about it a lot on this show, but just in case you might have missed those segments, qualified immunity is a judicial doctrine that allows cops to do whatever they want without fear of being sued. So it was created by the Supreme Court that shields state actors from liability for their misconduct, even when they break the law. Under this doctrine, government agents, including but not limited to police officers, can never be sued for violating someone's civil rights unless they violated clearly established law. It generally requires civil rights plaintiffs to show not just a clear legal rule, but a prior case with functionally identical facts. Look, that's a fancy way of saying that it's incredibly difficult to sue police officers. And to brag about that in a job posting is clearly, it's unhinged. It's just an unhinged thing to do, which is why they later took that Facebook post down and apologized for it. We'll get to that in a second, but Cenk.
It also shows you that it's part of the culture. Like you don't, if somebody's trying to entice you into a job and they say, oh, okay, higher salary, healthcare benefits, right? Things that entice you, that are relevant to your life. So when they say to cops, qualified immunity, that is a signal to cops. See, because if you haven't watched those shows that we did, it's a technical legal term. There's not really great reason for you to know what it means, right? So to the general public, it doesn't mean anything. But for police in that culture, it means we're gonna let you break the law. So that's a nice little fringe benefit, right?
Yep.
Don't worry, you're gonna have legal civil protections if you break the law.
It's insane.
And you're emphasizing to people, advertising that to people who are going to be law enforcement officers, right?
So what kind of applicant is that gonna attract?
Exactly.
If that's one of the benefits, right? So they later took that post down, and then the Manchester, New Hampshire Police Department issued an explanation. I'll read it to you. You could decide what you feel about it. Earlier today, Manchester police published a recruitment post that referenced qualified immunity. This post was not the place for the mention of qualified immunity and was not appropriate. The post was removed and archived appropriately. The post was, as chief of police, I take full responsibility for this post and the inappropriate mention of qualified immunity. I also want to just mention a story that we covered yesterday in regard to Nassau County and how they just passed a law that allows for police who have qualified immunity to sue protesters for allegedly harassing them. I'm not even kidding you. So we have, as I said on the show earlier, parts of this country where state lawmakers pass laws allowing for drivers to run protesters over if they're blocking the street. And in this case with Nassau County, cops who have qualified immunity can then turn around and sue protesters who hurt their feelings.
And of course, it's that Utah law that we covered. And it was actually in a bunch of states. I had a great interview about it on The Conversation, where even smiling at a police officer in the wrong way can get you arrested and be called a hate crime. I'm not kidding, and it's not an exaggeration. A woman was actually detained for smirking the wrong way at a police officer. So, but meanwhile, they can break the law and kill you and get away with it. And that's called qualified immunity, okay? So, Jesus, you do a live show and you got a cough.
It's the worst.
Yeah, and I sneezed in the middle of the show while Anna was doing one of the stories, right?
And you never sneeze, so when it happened, I was like, is he okay? What's
yeah, and it
going
was
on?
like, what? Anyway, okay, all right, let me finish the thought though. But I want to make two more points about this. So qualified immunity, there's actually one legislator who's fighting the hardest against it in Congress right now. You guys want to know who it is? I'm not kidding, and I'm not exaggerating. This is absolutely true. Cori Bush.
Yep.
It's funny, right? Because when she was running against a Democratic incumbent, who was a corporate Democrat, Lacey Clay, they said, oh, it's so important to have Lacey Clay in Congress because he's going to do so much for your district. You ever remember Lacey Clay being in the news, doing anything for anyone? Never, right? He quietly would vote for corporate donors and go home and collect his check. Now, Cori Bush is in the news nonstop. She's trying to get the Republicans kicked out for doing the insurrection. She just got you the eviction moratorium extended. She's fighting to get rid of qualified immunity. When these Justice Democrats defeat Democratic incumbents, all of a sudden you gain a representative. It's someone who actually bothers to do their job and fight for you. By the way, go support Justice Democrats that are fighting right now. Jessica Cisneros just announced today against Henry Cuellar, one of the worst corporate Democrats in the world, and so support her in Texas. But one more thing, you notice in the part that the graphic that Anna read you guys, it said that qualified immunity was created by the Supreme Court. Isn't that funny, right? Because conservatives say they hate activist judges. They don't want activist judges. Activist judges just created a law that didn't exist.
They be acting.
Yeah, and they created another law that doesn't exist, that corporations are human beings. They just created that. That was an activist judge. And then Lewis Powell wrote a memo for the Chamber of Commerce saying Lewis should capture the Supreme Court. And he literally wrote in the memo, we should make them activist judges, but in favor of corporations. Richard Nixon took Lewis Powell, put him on the Supreme Court. And guess what he did? Lewis Powell created the doctrine that corporations could give unlimited money to politicians. That was also just created by no law ever passed as it should in a democracy. Supreme Court created it. Conservatives out there, if you don't believe me, number one, you can go look it up, and you hate corruption like we hate corruption. Number two, you know what other case Lewis Powell voted in favor of? Roe v. Wade, activist judges. If you didn't like him in Roe versus Wade, wait till you get a load of them on corruption and corporation issues. And in this particular case, qualified immunity created to protect the powerful and their guardians, as opposed to protect the people who they hurt when they break the law, which would be average American citizens. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.